Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. This is a compilation video of some of my greatest hits. Hope y'all enjoy them.
Rights versus reality. Now, there's some reality there that you cannot ignore. One of the things that they don't get is everybody seems to think the government gives you these rights, and it's a little horse shit. It's wrong. Our rights come from God. If you're a Christian or a believer in whatever God. If you're an atheist, they come from your innate humanity. But regardless of whatever it is, as a human being, you have these rights. And these rights are enumerated in the Bill of Rights. The right to peacefully assemble, the right to worship God or any God as you choose or choose not to, the right to own a weapon, an arm, okay? They're all there, okay? But the government doesn't give you these rights. They're already there. You have them as a human being. Therefore, the government cannot take them away. I'm going to talk a lot about the Second Amendment because it's the one I know the most about. I'm a huge Second Amendment fan. But getting back to I'm going to use it as an example a lot, but getting back to the original thesis, these people don't know, the subject rather, these people don't know their God-given rights because they think the government, they work for the government controls everything. It's a little horseshit. There's a phrase, of, by, and for. Of the people, by the people, for the people. Our government is unique. It works for us in America. Okay, now, people say, well, you have to do what the government says. No, the government does what we say. We elect a president. We elect our representatives. Our representatives represent us. Okay, any elected official works for us. Okay, anybody who's paid by taxes works for us. We are their employees, or employers. They are our employees. Now, when it comes right down to it, people don't understand that, and they don't want to understand that. Because with freedom comes responsibility, and people don't want to be responsible. I got a lot of relatives that are that way. Now, I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not. They're really good people. But and I hate to use this term because it sounds bad, but it's not. They're ignorant. They're ignorant of their rights. Ignorance is okay because you can still be learned. You can learn. You can be taught. Stupid is where you get into problems. But the point is, every right enumerated in the Bill of Rights is yours. It's yours. Nobody can take it from you. Okay? You have the right to speak your mind. I have the right to speak my mind. You and I may not get along. I may not like what you say. But if somebody tries to shut you up, I'll be there to help you. I got your back. Okay? And I would expect you to do the same for me, even if you hate what I'm saying. Even if you disbelieve it, if you think I'm a dumb, stupid son of a bitch. I have the right to say what I want to say. All right? Same as you do. If I don't like what you say, I'll help you. You help me, I'll help you. That's the way that works. But the point I'm getting at is the First Amendment is freedom of speech. And there's more to it than that. I'm going to go into those later. Second Amendment, we have the right to keep and bear arms as people. And then there's a bunch of them. We've got the Fourth Amendment with the right to privacy. The 10th Amendment is one of the most important ones because it says any powers not specifically enumerated to the government falls to the states or the people. So it's kind of a catch-all. People don't understand that either. But here's the other thing. People don't know their God-given rights, and there's a reason they don't know their God-given rights. They're ignorant for a reason. They're made that way on purpose. People who don't know their rights don't know when their rights are being abused. Okay? People who don't know their rights don't know when their rights are being abused. Okay? Now, here's what I'm getting at. For a long time, our education system has gone to shit. And it's gone to shit on purpose because the people who are running our education system are gearing it specifically to become Democrats. They're run by Democrats. That's why you have all this stuff with the colleges. They're not really learning centers anymore. They're indoctrination centers for leftist propaganda. But it starts before that. In grade school, you have schools that we're funneling tons of money into these schools, but the teachers can't discipline the students. Excuse me, they can't pray, they can't thank God, they can't. The children run the place. Schools have become an insane asylum, and the patients, the inmates run the thing, because the teachers can't do anything about it, the administrators can't do anything about it, because it's designed that way. Our children are getting a faulty, fraudulent education. They don't know their God-given rights because intentionally nobody is teaching them their God-given rights. I'm trying not to make this video go too long because my last two have gone really long. This is my third video. So, here's the thing. Your rights come from God. Period. The government can't take them away. And I'm going to go into specific videos as to all the amendments and what the Constitution does. But if you read the Constitution, sit down and read it. Get an actual copy of it. Sit down and read the Constitution. It never says the people have the right to do this. It says the government cannot abridge the right of the people to do this. The government cannot stop people from doing this. The government cannot impede this freedom, blah, blah, blah. It's all limiting the government. The Constitution was written specifically to limit government. Why? Our forefathers fought a war for 2 years against the greatest army in the world, was the British Army. We fought a war, or our forefathers fought a war against the greatest army in the world for 2 years, specifically because they did not like the government telling them what to do. So, that's why less government is better than more government. Big government people essentially want the government to run their lives. And that's a load of shit. I don't care who you are, that's a load of shit. Everybody and their uncle that I know of wants to be left alone. If you want cradle to grave coddling, if you want to be taken care of, fed, clothed, housed, told what to do, when to eat, when to sleep, when to shit, you may as well be a slave. Okay? You may as well just walk over there and put the shackles on and sit there and wait. Be told what to do. Okay? And believe it or not, under the demon crap philosophy, that's what you're going to get. Okay? The demon craps are still pissed off that the good guys took away their slaves and they're trying to get them back. But they don't just want the black people. They want everyone. They want the only people to have guns to be them. The government, and with them in control of the government. That's what they want. That's why they want to push their gun control agenda. They're trying to eliminate free speech. All these speakers go to these colleges, and they organize riots to shut them down. Invasion of privacy. Right now, Google is selling your data to the government. You own a cell phone. Everything you put on there. I don't care if you're texting with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your boyfriends and girlfriends, whatever your lifestyle is, none of my business. But everything you put in that thing, they don't have to tap it to understand it. They don't have to have a warrant to tap your phone. They've got everything your phone sends because it goes up to a damn satellite, and they own the satellite. The more electronics you have, the easier it is to get in, and they've got it. It's right there. Okay? They don't need a warrant. And if that's not a blatant invasion of privacy, I don't know what is. That's your Fourth Amendment. Gone. Okay? I hate cell phones. If we didn't live in such a remote area, I wouldn't own one. I take it for emergencies in case I break down or whatever, and it stays in my jacket pocket. Anybody listening to me, they get a heck of a lot of Alex Jones and Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and UFO conspiracy stuff and, Bigfoot documentaries, that kind of thing. That's all they're listening to. And they ain't getting nothing but the inside view of my jacket pocket, which is pretty damn dark. So, and they might get my cigar lighter. That's about it. At any rate, know your rights. Okay, read the Constitution. It's important that you know that. okay? Because that's the law of the land. Our entire society, our culture is based on that. If you don't know your rights, you don't know when they're being abused or when they're being violated, okay? When the cops kick your, they had this thing where this old man was asleep in his bed. The cops kicked his door down. He didn't know who it was. He pulled out a gun and there was a gunfight. He ended up dying. Why? Because the cops got the wrong house. His rights were violated and he died for it. There's demon crap politicians right now promising to take our guns away. Well, the Second Amendment. Everybody says, well, we got to have the Second Amendment because I want to be able to hunt. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. Jesse Ventura is very famous for saying the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. When it was written, if you didn't hunt or fish, you didn't eat. It was because it's stupid. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. I mean, I'll say it makes it easier because throwing rocks is hard. But my point is, guns do make hunting easier. But it's not about hunting. Okay. The Second Amendment is there in case the government becomes tyrannical. Our forefathers fought a tyrannical war, a war against tyranny, and they did it for 2 years against England, Great Britain, okay? And they fought it against the greatest army in the world. And when they decided to do the Bill of Rights, and they included the Second Amendment, and there's two parts to that for a reason. I'm going into this too in depth, but the point is, you have the right to own a gun, not for hunting, but for self-defense. And Ted Nugent said another great quote: "You have every right to defend your gift of life, and anybody who will argue that is a blatant idiot." That's not an exact quote, but it's something like that. So anyway, learn your rights. Learn them because they're yours. You own those rights. The government doesn't give them to you. They're yours by default because you're a human being. And I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care where you came from. If you're an American citizen, know your rights. Because if you don't know them, you won't know when they're being taken away. People don't know their rights. And I mentioned in that video that there are certain people that are ignorant. And, it's not a bad thing to be ignorant. It's just don't stay that way. The problem is, in our school system, they don't teach civics. They don't teach basic math anymore. At least not the way they taught us. So this Common Core math is not good, and they're rehashing history, and they're changing history is what they're doing. They're taking all the good stuff America has done out, and they're focusing on the bad things. Now, America's not perfect. I never said we were. But we are the greatest country in the world simply because we're free. Other countries have freedom, but not like us. Okay? Other countries' freedoms are granted to them by their governments. America's founded on the principle that we're inherently free, and we have to have the government for certain things, dealing with foreign governments, protecting the borders, that kind of thing, enforcing laws. But the government works for us. It's not the other way around. So, excuse me. Oh, some coffee. Yeah, my wife got me the mug. It's freaking awesome. I love the hell out of her. Okay. There's something people don't understand. There is a movement in America to deny our citizens basic information that they should have. One of which is civics. If you don't know how your government works, if you don't know the rights that are inherent in you as a human being, you don't know when those rights are being trampled on. Saul Alinsky, who is quite possibly one of the most demented, evil people on the planet, he wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. Rules for Radicals is a guideline. It's a step-by-step instruction manual for the destruction of America. It details how to turn a free society into a communist or socialist society.
And all you people out there who think that socialism is great, I'm going to do a whole video on that. And if you think socialism is a good thing, you're dead wrong. Socialism has killed over 100 million people, and this isn't soldiers on the battlefield. It's killed over 100 million people in the last century alone. And this isn't soldiers on the battlefield. This is citizens being murdered by their own government. The official term is democide. I'm going to do a video on that, so don't worry about that. But the point I'm getting at is, this Saul Alinsky, he wanted to turn America into a socialist nation, so he wrote a manual on how to do it. Barack Obama was following that list to the T. Literally, to the T. Hillary Clinton corresponded with Saul Alinsky. She knew the man. Okay? One of the projects on this list that Saul Alinsky wrote in his book Rules for Radicals is you have to control the education system, the schools. And one of the famous quotes by a communist was, "Give me all your children, let me educate your children, and I'll basically turn them all into communists," or something. I don't remember the exact quote. But Martin Luther King Jr. actually came out and said, "Only a fool lets his enemies educate his children." It doesn't get much plainer than that. Okay? This is Martin Luther King Jr., one of the greatest men that ever lived. Okay? Now, Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky is an evil book. It's designed to destroy America. If you don't believe it's evil, read the dedication. It's dedicated to Lucifer himself, the original radical, as Alinsky put it. The devil. It's dedicated to the devil. Okay? Now, they're not doing civics in school anymore, and they're doing all this on purpose. Our children are receiving a faulty, fraudulent education because they're not being taught what they need to be taught to survive. They don't teach home ec anymore. Why? Because they want everyone beholden to the government. They're not teaching, home ec teaches stuff like cooking. I saw a video the other day, teenagers, high school kids, couldn't figure out how to work a manual can opener. What the hell? Saul Alinsky's program, one of his programs is control the education. They're not being taught. You take the children of this generation, or actually it's last generation, and the millennials that everybody talks about, and you create a dumbed down, ignorant generation. And then later on, when you want to brainwash them, they're already there. If you start brainwashing the children when they're young, you get brainwashed adults. Or does that not make sense? Well, that's what they're doing. These kids have no clue what the First Amendment says. They have no clue what it means. They may be able to quote the words, but they got no clue what it means. The First Amendment, the big part of that is free speech. You have the right to say what you want. I have the right to say what I want. Even if we don't get along, we have the right to say what we want. Okay? There's a whole slew of conservative speakers that go to these colleges, and the local Democrats organize riots to shut those speeches down. That's an infringement of the First Amendment. Right there. Okay? Excuse me. The Second Amendment. They're trying to do away with the Second Amendment. They're trying to say guns are evil. A gun is a tool, just like any other tool. You can kill somebody with a hammer just as well. It's just a tool. You can kill somebody with a screwdriver. You can kill somebody with your car. Okay? You don't see anybody trying to ban hammer, screwdrivers, and saws and cars. Okay? The point is, and I'm going to do a whole thing on the Second Amendment. I have a wonderful speech on that. But the point is, these lefties, and I call them demon craps. My son loves that term. Demon craps, because they are. Anything a demon craps up and can't figure a way to cover up, it's probably a Democrat. And I'm going to say it again, I'm not talking about your average Democrat walking in the street. The average Democrat voter is basically a good person. They just don't know because they're not being taught. They're being lied to by their own party. Okay? These Democrats lie to their own people, the people who are voting for them. They've been lying to black people for decades. Okay? But they're because they have to have that black vote. This last election, the country was split between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Donald Trump won, but by a very narrow margin. I'm a firm believer, and there's evidence to suggest that massive amounts of illegal aliens voted for Hillary Clinton in that election illegally. Okay, and voter fraud is a thing; it's a real thing. But if Donald Trump gets 5% of the black vote to leave the Democrat Party and come over to his side, which I hesitate to call it the Republican Party because most Republicans don't like it. That's one of the reasons I like Donald Trump is because the Republicans and the Democrats both didn't like him. He's got to be, if everybody hates him, he's got to be doing something right? At any rate, if we get 5% to come from the Democrats to the conservative side, that's a 10% difference. And basic math, and the Democrats will never win another election legally. That's why they want all the illegal aliens coming in here. But I'm digressing from the story here, from the topic. This education system that we have is faulty and fraudulent. And when I make a video, I tend to digress and go into all different directions. But the problem is, everything in politics is intertwined. Everything is based on something else, which is based on something else. You can't talk about one thing without talking about other things. You can't isolate one topic. And I'm going to try to get out of here as quick as I can because these videos tend to run long. Man, I'm a long-winded SOB. So, here's the thing. People need to read the Constitution. And don't listen to what other people say. Don't listen to me. Get a copy of the Constitution itself in your hand, a paper copy. Don't look at it online. Get a paper copy and read it yourself. Listen to the language. Listen to the way it's phrased. Read it and understand what your rights are. Because if you don't know what your rights are, you don't know when they're being trampled on.
Bill of Rights. I'm starting with the First Amendment. I'm going to read it verbatim and then we'll discuss it. Here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay? That's what it says. As Antonin Scalia used to say, the Supreme Court Justice, it says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Okay, so here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting da-da-da-da-da. Notice how it's phrased. Congress shall make no law. It doesn't say, we have, as Americans, we have the right to do this, because it's already assumed we do. This is limiting Congress. Congress shall make no law. It's important you understand that. The U.S. Constitution limits the government. It doesn't limit the people. Establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. You can be a Jew. You can be a Christian. You can be a Muslim. You can be a Scientologist. You can be a Druid. You can worship a sock puppet. Nobody cares. As long as you're worshiping your religion the way you want to worship it, and you're not hurting nobody, and you're not doing nothing illegal, nobody cares. Okay? I don't care. Nobody cares. All right? Here's a funny line from an old movie called Paint Your Wagon. The guy says, I don't care how a man prays, there's room in hell for all of us. And I love that line. It's a great line. Great movie if you haven't seen it. Leah Marvin and Clint Eastwood, and it's a musical. So anyway, all right, religion, we did that. What I think where religion gets into problems is when these cults, and I call them cults because they're, they break the law, they have child brides, they do human sacrifice, blah, 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 blah. My point is, it's when you break the law, that's when the religion part comes into question. But as long as you're not breaking the law, you can, and everything's consensual, and you're not forcing nobody, everything's on the up and up. Nobody cares. Worship whatever you want. Nobody cares. A freedom of speech. This is one of the most important ones. I'm making these videos. I have the right to say what I want to say. And I'm going to keep saying it as long as I got breath in my body. Conversely, you have the right to say what you want to say. You do. And if anybody tries to tell you to shut up, you can tell them to go to hell. You're protected by the First Amendment. I'm protected by the First Amendment. Everybody, every American is protected by the First Amendment. And that means if somebody tries to shut you up, I got your back. I'll come and help you if you need it. I'll be there. Okay? Even if I don't like what you got to say, what you have to say, I will defend to the death your right to say it. Okay? That's the First Amendment. We have all these conservative speakers going to these colleges, universities, and the local Democrats to get together, and they hold riots and everything to shut them down. Well, the excuse they give is, oh, that conservative, he's spouting hate speech. No, hate speech is an invented term. There's no such thing as hate speech. Now, there certainly is hateful rhetoric. Let's not mince words there. But the term hate speech is simply speech you don't agree with. And keep in mind, popular speech doesn't need defending. The First Amendment was written for unpopular speech. If everybody agrees with you, what's the point of having the First Amendment? Okay? Think about that. Freedom of the press. I wish MSNBC and CNN would try doing a little honesty in their reporting. That would be nice. Be a nice change of pace, because they really are fake news. I mean, they'll manipulate what's said. I've seen them do it. I watched everything. Like I said, I'm a political junkie. I watched everything that Donald Trump said during the campaign, the 2016 campaign, and I would watch what he said, and I would listen to what CNN reported, and it was virtually antithetical. It was the opposite. It was certainly not what he said. And nobody can make that many mistakes. It's got to be intentional. They're doing it on purpose. This mainstream media, they're lying to us, and we know they're lying to us. They're manipulating us. Okay? That's what they're doing. They shouldn't do it. But all that being said, they have the right to say what they want to say. There's a man named Bill Maher. He is about as leftist as you can get. I disagree with him on virtually everything he says. I agree with him on two topics: Islam and the First Amendment. When they were banning Alex Jones, and they're doing a pretty good job of it, Bill Maher came out and said, I don't agree with what Alex Jones says. I disagree with everything the man says, but he has the right to speak. Okay? Bill Maher said he has the right to speak because he's protected by the First Amendment. Bill Maher, God bless you. Never thought I'd say that. Now, the right of the people peaceably to assemble. If you have an event, or if you have a speech you want to give, or if you have something that you think needs to be said, you can go down and get a permit, and you can book a venue, whatever venue you want, and go down and have people show up and say what you want to say. Okay, you can't do that in other countries. There are other countries that they frown on that. I was watching a video from, I want to say it was Turkey, but don't quote me. And they had this reporter, and he had his cameraman was out there, and he was up there doing his little interview. And there was some protests going on, and the soldiers were pushing the protesters back. You've seen them do it on video, on TV and everything. Well, anyway, when they got to this reporter, the soldiers didn't treat him any different. They just shoved him down. They kicked the camera. They had the guy. They pushed the reporter down on the ground. I mean, it was. My buddy was watching it with me. He goes, "Well, they can't do that. It's a violation of the First Amendment." And I said, dude, they don't have the First Amendment over there. There is no First Amendment there. That soldier was doing what he was told. But it's illegal. Not there, it ain't. Keep that in mind. Okay, this country's, it's nice living in America. You've got a lot of freedoms here you don't have anywhere else. To petition the government for a redress of grievances. If the government does you dirt, if you don't like what they're doing, you can go and tell them, hey, that's wrong, and here's why. Boom, 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 boom. You can file lawsuits against them. Yeah, you can't do that in every country. In some countries, you file a lawsuit and you get killed for it, or imprisoned or whatever. I mean, people go, well, America sucks. Well, no, America's the greatest country in the world, and this is one of the reasons why. Okay, so keep that in mind next time you see some of these protests going on in foreign countries where they're using tear gas and water cannons, or worse, because there is an or worse. Here we go. Let's get into the Second Amendment. In my opinion, it's the most important one. Because without the Second Amendment, we have no defense against tyranny. We do not last as a free people. The Second Amendment is what allows us to remain free. How do you make a slave? The first thing you do is you take away his weapons, his guns, his arms. If the guy hasn't got any arms, any weapons, any way to defend himself, then he can be enslaved. As long as we've got our guns, they can't do that to us. And by they, I mean Democrats. All right. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Seems pretty straightforward. A well-regulated militia. The people make up the militia. Back then, when it was written, we didn't have a standing army. There was no U.S. Army. There was the Continental Army, and there was, every state had its own militia, and that's what they used for defense. And they did that for a reason. Now we have the U.S. Army, which, it's not a bad thing, but it's got some downsides. The U.S. Army can use that if it wanted to. If it becomes tyrannical, the U.S. government can use that army as a cudgel against free people, and it's not a good thing. A militia is run by the state. See, it's like our National Guard. All right. Being necessary to secure a free state. Okay. If somebody tries to invade us, our forefathers knew that we needed a militia to defend ourselves and to remain a free state. If you can't defend yourself, you don't remain free for very long. It's the way of the world. It's been that way for millennia. Okay. Now, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Notice how it's worded. The right of the people. Okay. The right of the people. It doesn't say the government gives you the right to do this. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That right already exists. We have it as human beings. We have that right. Okay, and you hear all these lefties talking about how it's meant for muskets. It was written for muskets. Okay, our forefathers were not stupid. Our forefathers knew that arms evolved. Cavemen had rocks. Then they moved up to flint knives. Then they moved up to whatever, better flint knives. I don't know. But they eventually became bows and arrows, arquebuss, muskets, rifles, AR-15s, AK-47s. My point is, our forefathers knew weaponry and technology evolves. That's why they wrote it in here as arms. Now, when they say arms, are they talking about our arms? No. Because if we don't have the right to keep our arms, what are they going to do, chop them off? That's stupid. Of course we get to keep our arms. When they're talking about arms, it's the same usage as that's an armed individual. He has a weapon. Now, arm is a very broad term. It's all-inclusive. There's not one word in here about muskets or guns or artillery or whatever, because it says arms. Arms includes all of that. An arm is anything you can use to defend yourself. Anything. Somebody breaks into your house, all you got's the kitchen knife, use it. That's your arm. You're armed. You have a kitchen knife. If all you can find is a brick, you're armed. You have a brick. You're armed. That's an arm. Okay? A gun is an arm. Thank God. A howitzer is an arm. A flamethrower. Whatever you can use to defend yourself, that's an arm. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. We have that right. We have that right as human beings. The government doesn't give it to us, therefore the government can't take it away. Period. But some of the most important words here, at least to me, are the last four. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's pretty straightforward. Infringed is a broad term, but those four words are pretty straightforward. Shall not be infringed. That is a direct order for the U.S. government. Shall not be infringed means they can't take that right, they can't change that right, they can't impede that right, they can't do anything to that right. Shall not be infringed at all. Period. In my opinion, shall not be infringed means every federal gun law is illegal by that. Now, states have the right to make their own laws, and if you don't like the laws there, you can move to a different state. That's America. It's awesome. You can be free. But according to the Second Amendment, the way it's worded, and Justice Antonin Scalia of the Supreme Court was very famous for saying it says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. This is what it says. Shall not be infringed. Okay? There's no gray area there. There's no question about it. There is no gray area. It's right there. Okay? Now, we're going to move on from that. I hear these Democrats talking about, you don't need a 10 rounds to kill a deer. No, if you need 10 rounds to kill a deer, I agree with that. You don't need 10 rounds. If you need 10 rounds to kill a deer, you're a crappy hunter. But then the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. Not one thing. Agreed, it makes it easier because throwing rocks is hard. But it's not about hunting. It's about defense against tyranny and defending your life. Those are the two things. Okay? Now, let's get past that and let's do a hypothetical situation. Let's pretend there is no Second Amendment. That was never added. Okay. So we don't have a defense against tyranny. But we have an inherent right to defend our gift of life. If somebody tries to kill you, you can defend yourself. If somebody comes at you with a knife or a gun or a brick or a baseball bat, or if somebody really big comes at you, you have the right to defend your gift of life. If anyone argues that point, you know they're idiots. Okay? You know flat out they're idiots, especially if they're politicians, because they have an ulterior motive. They want your guns for a reason. There's only one reason a politician doesn't want his people armed, and that's because he plans on doing stuff they won't like taking away freedoms, putting people in jail that don't need to be in jail, infringing on our rights, that kind of thing. That's the only reason you want to take away guns. There is no other reason. And people say, well, what about all these mass shootings? Well, those mass shooters were criminals. Okay? The vast majority of gun owners, over 99.999% of them, are decent, law-abiding, loving, wonderful, good people. And just leave us alone. All right. Violent crime. There is violent crime out there. And taking away guns will not stop that. As a matter of fact, statistics have proven that it makes it worse. London right now, you're going to love this. London right now has problems. They have a series of crimes that they're having a lot of problems with because there's a lot of them. London doesn't have any guns, so they're not allowed to. So if the criminals can't get guns illegally, which they do quite a bit, but since they can't get them illegally, they're having a problem now with drive-by stabbings. That's not a joke. I'm being serious. Drive-by stabbings are on the rise in London. London now has higher murder rate than New York, and they're using knives. If the criminals can't get guns, they'll use whatever they can. Just like us. If we are not allowed to have guns, I'm going to use whatever I have to do to defend my family. And the consequences be damned. Nobody's going to break in and hurt my family, period. Okay? people say, well, no, because if they have guns, there's going to be crime. Guns equals crime, and that's just a load of horseshit. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Wherever there's more legal gun ownership, there's less crime. Okay? It's a contraindicator. I'm going to give you two examples. Houston and Chicago. In Chicago, there's daily shootings. There's gun violence all over the place. People are getting... there's people that call it Chirac because so many people are getting killed. Okay? It's a vicious place, and I wouldn't take my family there if somebody paid me. If you gave me a house in Chicago, I would sell it. I wouldn't move there. Okay? Because of the violence. Guns are illegal in Chicago. They're banned. Okay? Conversely, Houston. Everybody and their uncle owns a gun in Houston. And you know what? Violent crime is real low. Let's look at this from the criminal's point of view. If you have two houses, this guy may have a gun, this guy does not have a gun. Who are you going to rob? Yeah, you're going for the guy that ain't got a gun. Why? Because he doesn't have a gun. Makes your job easy. That's the way the criminals think. Okay. Women need guns, period. There's a joke out there, the old song, I want to say it was Pinkerton Bowden sung a song, said, there ain't nothing funny about a woman with a gun, and you know what? They're right. They're absolutely right. If some low-life piece of shit goes after my wife, he's screwed, because she's a better shot than I am. She's amazing, okay? She will put him down. She'll put 3 rounds into his chest faster than he can blink an eye. She's really good. Okay, I don't have a problem with my wife driving anywhere and doing whatever she wants because basically she's a better shot than I am. No, but my point is, I don't worry about her safety because she's really good and she's armed. People say, well, she should have got a rape whistle. What's a rape whistle do? Alert people you're being raped? There's places in America where the authorities tell women to yell fire when they're being raped, when they're being attacked, because people will respond to a fire. They won't respond. A lot of people don't respond to a call, rape, because they don't want to get involved. It's asinine, but there it is. Okay, women yell fire, people come running. Okay, rape whistles and restraining orders, I guess legally are okay, but it's going to sound bad, and I don't want it to because I do not advocate violence in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But if some piece of shit tries to rape you, if you're a woman and some piece of shit tries to rape you, it's a lot harder for him to do that when you shoot him in the chest 3 times. They're a lot less likely to repeat offend if they're shot in the chest. Just saying. Sheriffs. Many sheriffs advocate gun ownership. They know they can't be everywhere. Sheriffs, law enforcement, they're good people. The vast majority of them, you get crackpots and cranks and bad guys everywhere. But for the most part, 99.9% of them are good people. They try to do their best. But they're only human. They can only be in so many places at once. They can't be everywhere. So, and the bad guys know this. So, sheriffs advocate gun ownership because in the rural areas, it takes a while for the sheriff to respond. And so, in that time, a bad guy can do a lot of damage, especially if he has a gun. All right. Now, as far as these areas where the guns aren't legal, that doesn't stop a criminal from getting a gun because he's a criminal. Criminals do not obey laws. Hence the term criminal. See how that works? When you make guns illegal, the only people you're disarming are law-abiding people. Anybody, if having a gun makes you a criminal, then only criminals will have guns. Okay? Now, I am not a violent man. I do not ever plan to shoot anyone or hurt anyone. I'm a peaceful man by nature. But here's some advice, and I'm going to tell you why. Get a gun. Find out what's legal in your area to own. Buy a gun. Buy something you're comfortable with, something you can use. Obey the law. Don't break the law. Practice gun safety. Make sure you're safe. I love everybody out there. I don't want nobody to get hurt. Okay? Practice to be proficient. Go to the gun range. Take a gun safety course. If you're like me, I have my concealed carry. I have taken gun safety courses, and I am confident with my weapon. I carry a pistol. If you're not sure, I personally recommend a revolver because they're easier to use, easier to maintain, they're easier to work with. And some people go, well, you only have 6 rounds. Yeah, but I know I've got 6 rounds. If you've got a magazine of 30 rounds and the first or second one jam, you're done. A jammed weapon in a firefight is not a good thing. I don't care who you are. Revolvers are proven technology. I have never had my .357 Magnum jam on me. It is proven technology and it works. I know it works. I'm confident in that weapon. Simple is better. Too many moving parts to gum up the works. That's my opinion. And now if you find a weapon, like people talk really good about Glocks, and I'm sure they're good, but I'm confident with a revolver. Now, I have my concealed carry, and I get this all the time. Well, he want to be a badass. He want to carry a gun and be a badass and shoot people and be like Dirty Harry. That's the stupidest thing I have ever heard. The reason people get a concealed carry license is not so they can go out and murder people. There's a term when you're taking a class, they tell you there's sheepdogs, there's sheep, and there's wolves. The sheepdogs protect the sheep from the wolves. The sheepdog are the concealed carry holders. The sheep are the unarmed, innocent civilians. The wolves are the predators, the violent predators that would prey on the sheep. The sheepdog, the concealed carry holder, protects the sheep, the innocent civilians, from the wolves, the violent predators. And those violent predators are out there. If some guy kicks your door in the middle of the night and he's got a weapon and he's threatening your family, what are you going to do? What can you do? You don't have a choice. I do not advocate violence, but if it comes to your life or theirs, live, survive. Okay? And if it helps, think of it like this. If this guy kicks your door down in the middle of the night, he made that choice. That was his choice to do that. He didn't have to do that. There's nobody's out there with a gun forcing him to do it. He did that on his own. If somebody climbs through your window, got a knife into your daughter's bedroom, guess what? He made that choice. Okay? You make the choice to survive and help you, make sure your family survives. I don't want nobody getting hurt. I don't want nobody being a statistic. So, take my advice. Get a gun. Make sure it's something you're comfortable with. Make sure it's something you can use. Make sure it's legal. Okay? Don't get an illegal gun. Obey the law. The last thing we want is for somebody to go to jail because they used an illegal gun to protect their family. Practice gun safety. Be safe. I don't want nobody getting hurt. Okay? Accidents happen, but let's prevent as many of them as possible. Practice gun safety. Take a gun safety course. They're wonderful. They're everywhere. You can. They're reasonably affordable. Some of them are free. But my point is, practice gun safety. Practice to be proficient. You don't want to hit anything you're not aiming at. Those bullets come out, and once they come out, they go. And there's not a whole heck of a lot that's going to stop them. Okay? And you want to be able to hit what you aim at. Period. You don't want to hit nothing else. Okay? God forbid you have to shoot somebody, you want to shoot the right somebody, as opposed to the innocent civilian, or your family, or your kid, or whatever. I'm going to read the Bill of Rights, or the Second Amendment, excuse me, and then we'll discuss it. All right. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. Seems pretty straightforward. So, here we go. When this was written, we didn't have the U.S. Army. We didn't have any kind of standing army. Every area, every little village and city and whatever had its own militia. So, when a threat happened, everybody basically grabbed their guns and went running. They were the militia. The militia is made up of the people. But, let me explain something here. When this was written, we were no longer at war. we had won the Revolutionary War, and we were America. We were no longer 13 colonies. We were 13 states, the original 13 states. Okay. So, why did they put this in here? Because the militia protects our way of life. A well-regulated militia. A well-regulated militia means we all have weapons, we're all well-trained, we're all versed in the same tactics. A well-regulated militia. That doesn't mean it's all legal and like that. Well, it's legal, but it's not all regulated per se. Not with legalities, but regulated as in it's well-ordered. Okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. That part is very important because our founding fathers knew that tyranny can come from any direction. It can come from a foreign power looking to invade us. It can come from our own government. Okay. And because they had just fought this war against the greatest army in the world, the Revolutionary War, they knew that people make up governments and people can be corrupted. So therefore, we needed a way to make sure our government never became tyrannical. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. We remain free because our government is not tyrannical. Okay? It's that simple. And who makes up the militia? The people. The people make it. You and me. We're the militia. So, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Because you and I make up the militia, and the militia guards against tyranny, we, as people, as members of this militia, we need to be well armed. And because our militia is supposed to protect us against this tyranny, as a group, we're supposed to do that. We have to have the same armament as the government. It's clear as the nose on your face. If we're like many on the left, they say, well, it's about muskets. Well, if all we've got is muskets and they're using M4s and grenade launchers, we're screwed. We have no chance, none. Okay? We have to have the same armament that our government's using. Period. Okay? Now, the difference between the militia and the Army and the National Guard and all that, the Army works for the federal government. The president runs the Army. The National Guard is run by the government of the state governor. That person, whoever it is, commands the National Guard. The militia is made up of the people. We're the militia. Okay? We guard against tyranny. And it could be at the state level or the federal level, either way. But we're Americans. We guard against tyranny. We are the militia. Okay. Getting back to the guns. We have to have what the government has. Right now, the government's using an M4. That's a standard arm. An M4 is essentially the same platform as an M16 back in Vietnam. The M16 in Vietnam was not a very good gun. Ask anyone. But they've made significant improvements now, and the M4 they're using now is a really, really good gun. We have to have something equivalent to that. Okay? That's the militia. Okay? And you hear the left saying, well, oh, nobody needs an AR-15. By the way, an AR-15 is the same platform as the M16 was. An AR does not mean assault rifle or automatic rifle. The company that makes it is Armalite. AR, Armalite. That's what that means. That's an Armalite 15. Okay. But, I digress. Right now, the government's using an M4, and they say, well, they don't need an AR-15. No, everybody needs an AR-15 because that's what we're using. That's what the government has. At some point in the future, the government's going to have laser guns. And you know what? We need laser guns too. Period. When you hear a lefty say, well, you know, we don't need these weapons of war. Well, yeah, we do. We need whatever the government has. And the government has billions and billions of dollars. They can field a massive army. Okay? We can't do that, obviously.
And you hear all of these other people say that, well, you know, there's no reason to have a fully automatic weapon. Well, yeah, there is, but I can understand the concern, because if everybody had a fully automatic weapon, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. I am not a fan of fully automatic weapons. Okay, but that's okay, because fully automatic weapons are very heavily regulated in America. I can't go down and get a fully automatic weapon. Let me explain. You hear all these news people and political pundits saying, oh, well, I was able to go down and buy a fully semi-automatic rifle, and, you know, it should be illegal. Okay. In the first place, there's no such thing as a fully semi-automatic weapon. That's a contradiction in terms. It's either fully automatic or it's semi-automatic. It can't be both. You can't have a black-white car. You can have a car that's two-tone, black and white. But you can't have a black-white car. If you mix black and white, you get gray. Okay? As far as paint goes, you get gray. So, you can't have a black-white car. You cannot have a fully semi-automatic weapon. They're lying to you. They're lying to you on purpose, because they have an agenda. Okay? They're trying to push the agenda of the leftist politicians who want to take away our guns. There was a there was a Democratic debate the other day, and every damn one of them, there's 20 of them, every damn one of them raised their hands and said, yeah, if we get elected, we're going to take away their guns. Every single one of them did that. Every single one of them. What's the only reason a politician wants to take away guns? Is because he knows that what he's going to do when he gets elected, nobody's going to like. You're not going to like what he does. And without guns, we can't object. Period. Defense against tyranny. That's the whole purpose of the Second Amendment. They know that. Okay? You cannot enslave people with weapons. First thing you do if you're going to make slaves out of someone is take away their weapons. Okay? I've said this before and I'll say it again. That's the only reason a politician wants to take your guns. If he's afraid of people with guns, that means he's afraid they don't like what he's going to do. Okay? So, fully semi-automatic. It's a bull-faced lie. I'm gonna explain the difference right now so everybody knows. A semi-automatic rifle, you pull the trigger and hold it down. Hold that bad boy down. One bullet comes out. Bang! You're holding that thing down. Nothing else happens. One shot. Okay? Now, fully automatic. A fully automatic weapon. Just like a machine gun. Round after round after round comes out until the magazine is empty. Okay? That's a fully automatic weapon. There's a huge difference between the two. You can either be semi-automatic or full automatic. I have a revolver. Bang, 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 bang. I have an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. Bang, 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 bang. Okay? Same concept. One bullet per trigger pull. And you can hold that trigger down and nothing else is happening. Okay? Now, it is possible for an American citizen to get a fully automatic weapon. But let's discuss what has to happen. In order to buy a fully automatic weapon, you have to have a Class 3 license. A Class 3 license. Okay? They're very expensive. They cost a lot. There's a background check that's something akin to them crawling up your asshole with a microphone with a magnifying glass. You got to pass a rigorous background check. It's not, it's not the DMV. They really go after you. And there's a third prohibitive cost that people don't discuss. It's called ammunition. For those of you who are gun owners, you understand ammunition's getting expensive. Anything other than, even 22 is getting expensive, but anything bigger than a 22 is enormously expensive. Okay? So, fully automatic weapons, they tear through ammo. They just tear right through it. Okay? So if you have a 30-round magazine, now an M4 will fire, according to the manufacturer's specs, if I'm not mistaken, something like, 600 rounds a minute. So if you have a standard 30-round magazine, you have to make 20 magazine changes. Well, 19 because you got one in. So, 19 magazine changes to get 600 rounds out of that bad boy.
All right, that's a lot of ammunition, and that's all gone in 1 minute. All right, ammunition is expensive. Okay, now, in order to get this Class 3 license, you have to buy the ammunition for this whatever fully automatic weapon you want to get. And ammunition being as expensive it is, it's going to tear through that ammo. 600 rounds is a lot of damn bullets. Okay, and if you're going to use that kind of firepower for at the range or in competition or whatever, you have to be able to afford it. Okay, I can't afford a fully automatic weapon. I can't do it. I simply don't make enough money. However, there are people who do, and they can afford it, and that's cool. If they can pass that rigorous background check, okay, and pay for that Class 3 license, bully for them. Good job. I can't do it. I'm a broke old fat man. I can't do it. Now, you hear these people say, well, there's no reason why anybody should have an AR-15. Well, yeah, there's plenty of reason. The government has them, therefore we need them. Period. Because we're the militia defends against tyranny, we have whatever the government has. Right now, the government's using that M4. AR-15 is the AR-15 is a good rifle, really good rifle. It uses the same platform as the AR-15, or as the M4. It's the same platform, same M16 platform, and it's a good gun. No matter what caliber you get in it, it's a really good gun. And we need whatever they have. Okay. Now, I'm gonna move on to something else I'm gonna explain to you some of these leftist lies that are coming out here about what we need as Americans. Okay. I was watching an interview with Bill Maher, and he had Darrell Issa on his show. And Darrell Issa is a good guy. He was arguing for the Second Amendment. Bill Maher was arguing against the Second Amendment. And Bill Maher's argument, as asinine as it is, says, this is what he said. He said the Second Amendment is obsolete because the government, the Army, has planes, tanks, and nukes. And everybody got a big laugh out of that. Okay. Man's a comedian. He's not a political pundit. Let's discuss how stupid that comment is. If the government comes at us with tanks, and we have our AR-15s, or whatever gun you prefer, but I'm going to use AR-15 as an example. If the government comes at us with tanks, we can mount a reasonable defense. There's some with some ingenuity, some improvised explosives, that kind of thing. We might. It ain't going to be great, of course, but we could mount a reasonable defense. Airplanes are a different critter. One A-10 Warthog with one strafing run can take out probably 6 blocks. They've got a big cannon on the front of that thing that's designed to take out tanks, and it'll mow through buildings, and it's devastating. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and Google, look up a video on the A-10 Warthog and just watch it. It's awe-inspiring. It's awesome. It's a wonderful airplane. Unless you're on the receiving end of that big cannon, then we're going to have problems. So, that being said, what Bill Maher fails to realize is the people driving those vehicles and airplanes, the pilots and the tank drivers, those are American citizens. Those are American soldiers. Those American soldiers have taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, I know all about that oath because I took it. All right? When those, and here's another thing you got to understand. A lot of those people driving those vehicles and flying those planes, a lot of them are NRA members. So, yeah, they have the same opinions and ideas that I do, at least a lot of them. So, when a soldier gets an order to murder civilians, what does he do? Well, it's an unlawful order. So this is according to the protocols. What he's supposed to say is, "Sir, I respectfully refuse to obey that order because it's an unlawful order." That's what he's supposed to do. Okay? Sir, I was just following orders. That doesn't cut it no more. Okay? And they know that. Okay? So, that eliminates the planes and tanks, because most of them are with us. Now let's talk about the really asinine one. Okay, the nukes. He said that the Second Amendment is obsolete because the government has nukes. Well, guess what? Let's look at the NRA. Well, let's just look at gun owners. There's about 100 million of us in America, at least. There's about 100 million of us. The NRA and their like-minded groups have about 20 million to 30 million members, if I'm not mistaken. My numbers may be a little off, but it's something like that. Say hypothetically, say it's 10 million. Okay? So let's hypothetically say there's only 10 million. And these 10 million people are spread throughout the entire United States and in every city. Where are they going to drop the first nuke? That's a good question. It's an important question. Because the first time a nuke drops on Dallas, or Atlanta, Georgia, or San Francisco, or Los Angeles, or New York City, or Mankato, Minnesota, or wherever, I guarantee you there's going to be a whole hell of a lot more than 10 million. Because good, like-minded, solid Americans are going to be lined up to get rifles. So say the government becomes tyrannical, and with one of these groups, one of these watchdogs groups, they send out the bat signal and we all grab our rifles and run out there and a nuke falls. There's going to be a lot more than 10 million of us. There's going to be a lot more than 100 million of us. Okay, Americans ain't going to put up with that shit. They don't put up with it with foreign governments. You know they're not going to put up with it from our government. There's going to be problems. And it's more problems than the U.S. government can handle. Okay, they know that. There's no way anybody's dropping a nuke. An American government is going to drop a nuke on American soil. It's not going to happen. Okay, Bill Maher's an idiot. Everybody knows he's an idiot, and he just proved it. He knows nothing about the situation. He's a comedian. He's out there to get laughs. Period. Okay? Why anybody bothers to... Okay, I'm going to throw Bill Maher a bone. I agree with him on two items. The First Amendment and Islam. That's it. Other than that, he's wrong on virtually every count. Okay? Now, I'm not trying to say that I'm a know-it-all or I know everything, but I know that. Okay? So, to recap all of this, the militia is made up of people. The people of the United States. Therefore, the people have to have their guns. Period. Because the militia guards against tyranny, we have to be equally armed to the weaponry that the tyrants would have. The tyrants could very well be our own government. So we have to have weapons roughly equivalent to what they have at some point in the future. Right now they got the M4s. We should have something equivalent, and the AR-15 is a good copy of that. It's a pretty good gun. In the future, if they have laser weapons, we need those too. Period. Okay. Now, I don't know how else to describe that. So I don't think I can make it any clearer. We're the militia. You and I. Whoever's watching this, you and I. We're the militia. Okay? We're the guardians against tyranny. We are. The Second Amendment is there so that should our government become tyrannical, we can fix it. Period. It's that simple. Okay? So when you hear these political people, the politicians and all that saying, well, you know, there's no reason anybody needs an AR-15. It's a weapon of war. Yeah, that's why we need it. Because they have it. So let's get started. I'm going to read what it says verbatim, and then afterwards we'll discuss it. Here's what it says. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Okay. Seems pretty straightforward. This one is This one was put in there specifically because of something the British Army was doing. At the time, the British had a lot of guys from England and other places, and they brought them over to help keep the colonists in line. And so they didn't have housing for them all. So they were quartering them with civilians. You know, you're going to take these 10 guys in, and you're going to feed them and house them and clothe them and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, you don't have a choice. So our forefathers felt it necessary. It was such a big thing at the time to put this in there. It specifically targets the military not being able to invade your home with their guys and set up residence. Now, in time of war, if the situation were dire, I don't have a problem quartering dudes in my house. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, but it's a whole different critter when the people who are trying to keep you in line because they don't trust you are putting guys in your house and you have to feed them. Okay, a lot of these young British soldiers were from, you know, far from home, and, you know, I'm sorry, if you got a daughter, you don't want 10 young, there's not a nice way to put this, you don't want 10 horny dudes in the house with your young daughter. Okay, it's that simple. Sorry, but that's the basic gist of it. And so, according to the U.S. Constitution, Third Amendment, they can't do it. No, the American military cannot do that. In peacetime, they can't do it. In wartime, they have to. There are specific provisions that allow them to do it, and they have to follow those because your rights are protected. This is one of your rights. And notice how it's worded: no soldier shall blah 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 be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. Okay, that's not limiting us. That's limiting the government. Again, every one of these is limiting the government, not us. Okay, we don't work for the government. The government works for us. That's why it's supposed to be as small and controlled as possible. Because big government's it's a bad thing, and our forefathers knew that. So every amendment of the U.S. Constitution, if you read them, they limit the government. They don't limit us. Now, this kind of goes towards eminent domain, because if they can come in and order you to watch, you know, to house people in your home, military guys, soldiers, they can take your land. Now, I understand sometimes the government has to take land for certain things, but they have to show just cause. According to eminent domain laws, they have to show just cause, and they have to pay you the fair market value. Now, certainly the fair market value part can be manipulated, and it happens a lot. There's a lot of crony capitalists out there. I did a video on crony capitalism, so watch that one. But according to the law, to the U.S. Constitution, they can't do that without just cause, and they have to pay you fair market value. Now, I'm not saying I'm a fan of eminent domain, because I'm not, but sometimes it's a necessity. The government has to build a fortress there to save the country, and some rancher or farmer or whatever, he says, well, that's my land. Well, okay, I understand, it is your land. But if we don't do this, nobody has any land. We all become slaves. You see what I'm saying? You got to pick. Sometimes you have to pick the lesser of two evils, and sometimes eminent domain is the lesser of two evils. I'm not a fan of it, but there it is. This is kind of a short one. It's not even 5 minutes yet, but that pretty much covers it, because there's the crux of this particular one amendment is private ownership. We own what's ours. My house is mine. I own it. My land is mine. I own it. Me. My big old fat bald body. That's me. Mine. I own it. Nobody can tell me what to do with it. Period. This goes directly to private ownership. Okay? Socialism, there is no private ownership. Think about that. Alright? The Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Okay? That's kind of a mouthful, but every word of that is important, and I'm going to explain why. Our country depends on it. Okay? What we're going to do here is we're going to go this, bit by bit. The right of the people. There it is again. The right of the people. The government didn't give us that right. We already have it. It's ours. Because we're human beings. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. Excuse me. If you're walking down the street, they by law they can't pull you over and search you or whatever without probable cause. They have stop and frisk in some places because of the high crime rates and what all, but if they're targeting, for example, if they're targeting black people and doing it, then that's a bad thing. If they're going to do that, they have to do it to everybody. Everybody has to be treated equally. If you're going to violate everybody's rights, violate everybody's rights. Okay. Now, houses. They can't come into your house and search without a warrant. And that warrant has to be specific. Okay. The bottom part of this says, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Okay. There have been cases where a search warrant was issued and the police go in and they find a ton of cocaine, bunch of hookers and whatever, illegal guns, whatever. And it all gets thrown out because the search warrant had the wrong address on it. Okay? It's got to be specific. That's a loophole. And there's a reason it's there. Because if it's not there, bad cops, and I'm not 99.9% of cops are good, but you always get those bad ones once in a while. And a bad cop can take a search warrant for next door from a year ago or whatever and finagle the date and whatever. Oh, look, I've got a search warrant. Let's go do your thing. Well, it's the wrong address. It doesn't matter. It's a search warrant. No, you can't do that. Papers. This sounds a little odd until you understand exactly what the British were doing at the time. Look up what's called the Stamp Act. What happened was, and this was a diabolical piece of legislation, the British were trying to raise currency, raise money, and they needed something else to tax. Because they were taxing every damn thing under the sun, they needed something else to tax. So what they did is they created a law that said that they could come into your house and search, and any scrap of paper that didn't have the king's seal on it, the king's stamp, was subject to taxing. So if you had a letter from your girlfriend or a letter from your mom or whatever, it didn't have the king's stamp on it, they could charge you for that. Sorry about that. Another phantom wind somewhere got the dogs to barking. Okay. Where was I? Okay, the Stamp Act. They could come in and anything that didn't have the king's seal on it was subject to taxation. And that was anything. A letter from your girlfriend, a letter from your mom, a letter you were writing, any piece of paper that didn't have the king's stamp. Boom. Okay. And your effects. Effects are anything you own. They're your personal possessions. It goes to personal ownership. Okay. I had a shed outside. If the cops want to search it, they have to have a warrant, and it has to name that shed specifically. Okay. So, unreasonable searches and seizures. Against unreasonable searches and seizures. Unreasonable searches and seizures are the crux of a lot of lawsuits. The former governor of Minnesota was going to fly on a plane and commercially, and he was going through there, and they give the option nowadays with the TSA. They give you the option of the body scanner or the search, and he has a metal hip, and it always sets off the scanner. So he chose the body search, and he endured what he described as a sexual assault. So he immediately left, went and got a lawyer, and filed a Fourth Amendment lawsuit against the TSA. According to this former governor, the judge, and the federal judge in that case, said she did not have the authority to rule in that matter. So if a federal judge can't rule in a Fourth Amendment case, who can? It makes you wonder exactly who's over the TSA and what can't they do. You heard of horror stories at the airport. Oh, they're searching Granny. They stripped her naked right there. Well, you know what? there's some people have too much power. Okay, and believe it or not, these are the same people that, before all this Homeland Security crap, and it is, I'm a big fan of security, but they're going too far. They're eliminating our rights. Before the Homeland Security Act, the TSA, before it was formed, these people, you wouldn't trust them to carry your luggage, much less search it. Okay, so shall not be valid, no reasonable search and seizure shall not be valid, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause. Now, here's the important one: probable cause. They have to have a reason to get this warrant. They can't say, "Well, that guy, I don't like the way he looks. I don't like the way he dresses. That lady over there, she's got a limp. We need to search her." No, can't do that. You got to have probable cause. The Hillary Clinton presidential campaign paid a man named Steele, Steele. He's a former British intelligence operative, to invent a fake dossier so they could use it to go to a FISA judge. And if you don't know what a FISA judge is, look it up. To go to this FISA judge to get a warrant to eavesdrop on Donald Trump while he was running for president. That is the entire crux of the Mueller investigation and all this crap that our country has had to go through because of these idiot demon craps. Okay? Now, the Mueller report came out and said there was no Russian collusion or none of that stuff, so it should be over and done with. But it's not. They're still beating that dead horse. That horse is dead. It's nothing but bones, and they're still beating it. Okay? All because they faked probable cause. Okay? If the police come to your house and find 10 tons of cocaine and they take you to jail, and the warrant they have is based on fake or imagined probable cause, they didn't have the proper probable cause to get that search warrant, the entire case gets thrown out. It's a loophole in our judicial system. Okay? Right now, William Barr is investigating the investigators in the Mueller situation, and hopefully there's some people going to be going to jail because a lot of people committed a lot of felonies in that situation, and not one of them was Trump. So let's just keep that in mind. Supported by oath or affirmation, which they did illegally. That dossier, they supported it, they signed off on it. Boom. And particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. They have to go after something specific. So I don't know what the law is now, but used to be if they pulled you over for a traffic violation, a speeding ticket or whatever, and they found a bunch of cocaine in your car, they couldn't act on it. Now I think now they can. I mean, I'm not advocating any of that, but I'm just saying the laws are specific about that for a reason. If they come to your house with a search warrant and the address is wrong, can't do it. You have to go back and get another search warrant. If they're searching your house and the warrant specifies just your house, and in the back shed you've got 10 tons of cocaine, guess what? They can't do it. It's got to be that particular house. Now, again, I don't know the legalities of this specifically, so don't quote me on that. But do some research, do your own research. But if that shed out back is not part of the search warrant, they can't do it. That's my understanding of it. The reason they did this was part of the Third Amendment when I said that they were coming to people's houses and forcing them to quarter soldiers and stuff. Well, the Stamp Act, that's what they were going for. And I touched on the Stamp Act here as well. They could come into your house without a warrant or anything and just come into your house and search, and if they can find a piece of paper, boom. That's what this is all about. It's about personal property, privacy, private ownerships, and this is our rights. The right to the people to secure in their possessions. It's our rights. You got to know them, okay? because people will violate them in a heartbeat if they know you don't know them. We're on the Fifth Amendment. I'm going to read it verbatim and then we'll discuss it. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That one's a mouthful. Drink coffee. Okay. As I see it, I mean, this is a long paragraph, and there's a lot of important stuff in there. But this video will be 30 minutes long if I hit every point. So I'm going to try to do the 4 main points that I see. The first one is due process. They cannot come in and say, we think you're guilty, we're going to hang you. The wheels of justice cannot roll over you. You have due process. You're entitled to a trial by jury. You're entitled to face your accusers. You're entitled to... They have to present evidence and witnesses. You have to be able to cross-examine those witnesses. You have right to appeal. If you're found guilty, you have the right to appeal. I mean, it's a whole slew of things there. But it's called due process collectively. And they can't just say, we think you're guilty, so we're going to send you to jail or hang you or whatever. They can't do that. Okay. The Fifth Amendment is about the judicial process and what you're entitled to as an American citizen. Okay. So read this and study it and make sure you're aware of it. The second point, double jeopardy. This was a big thing back in England back in the day, and they put it in here for a reason. Okay. They can't keep trying you for the same offense until they get the outcome they want. If you're accused of theft and you get off, they can't prove their case, okay? Because the burden of proof is on the prosecution. If they can't prove the case, you're free, right? They can't keep trying you over and over and over on the same crime until they get the verdict that they want. It may or may not be the right verdict. I don't know. But the judicial process says they can't keep trying you until they get a guilty verdict. If you get away, you get away. That's the legal process. All right. A person cannot be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself or be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. You cannot be compelled to incriminate yourself. Okay? You can't be compelled to testify against yourself. You hear people get on the stand and they ask them, well, I'll have to take the Fifth Amendment on that. Well, that's what they're referring to. They can't compel you to answer a question that might incriminate you. You can't incriminate yourself on the stand. Well, you can, but they can't compel you to. If you invoke your Fifth Amendment rights, they can't press that further. And the other one, the fourth point I wanted to make on this, it deals with eminent domain. Last part says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. I touched on this in an earlier video. I want to say it was the Fourth Amendment, right to privacy. Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, eminent domain, it has a function, okay? Sometimes the government needs a stretch of land. Sometimes they need to take this building. Sometimes they need this particular rise overlooking a bluff to put an anti-aircraft gun, whatever. But, and they if they need it, that's fine, but they have to give you just compensation. Now, it is possible to manipulate the market so that, and that has happened. I'm not saying eminent domain is perfect, but they have to have just reason to do it, and they have to be able to. They have to give you just compensation for it. They can't just take it. They have to pay you for it, the fair market value. Okay. But those are the big four that I can see here. Again, read this yourself and go over it bit by bit because there's a lot of information in there. It's kind of wordy, but it's important that you read it all. U.S. Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We'll read it and then we'll discuss it. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Okay. In the Fifth Amendment, we talked about due process. Well, this enumerates the due process. All right? And notice the wording. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to... Blah, blah, blah. It's all limiting the government. They can't take this right away because it's ours. Okay? We already have it as human beings. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. They can't hold you in jail for 25 years and then suddenly decide, oh yeah, we'll put him in trial now. No. Speedy and public. Everybody has to see you either be judged guilty or innocent. Okay? Everybody has to know it. There's no secrets. Transparency. Okay? By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. Impartial jury. Has to be a jury of your peers. Has to be people with no stake in the outcome. That way they can give an honest ruling. An honest judgment. Okay? If somebody stands to make a lot of money by you going to jail, you don't want them sitting on your jury. It's that simple. And the district have been previously ascertained by law. Okay. It has to be in the district where the crime was committed. Okay? If you commit a crime in Arizona and then run to New Mexico and they catch you, New Mexico extradites you back to Arizona to stand trial for the said crime, whatever that crime is. In the Old West, it was the bank robber has to make it across the line to Mexico, so that's old Mexico, so they can't, they'll get away. That's because Mexico didn't have an extradition treaty. I don't know how the law is now, but that's the way it was back then, and that's why it's in the old movies like that. And to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. They can't hold you without letting you know why you're being held. Okay? They can't throw you in jail and hold you forever and not tell you why. Okay? It's due process. All these are your rights. To be confronted with the witnesses against you. In other words, if person A accuses you of theft, they have to be able to confront your accuser. You have to be able to confront your accuser. They can't just say, we have witnesses and that's it. No, what witnesses? You have to tell me. Okay. To have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. If they have witnesses that say you did something, you have to have witnesses to say you didn't. That's only fair. And if somebody says, well, I don't want to get involved, well, there's a subpoena. You get over here and tell what you know and be honest. Okay? That's what that's for. You have to be able to provide yourself with a proper defense. Otherwise, it's not justice. They'll just beat you with a stick with a rule of law. Bam, 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 and you're done. Okay? And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. And one of the Miranda rights is, if you have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one will be provided to you by the courts. Okay, that's what this is referring to. You have to have legal counsel, and if you can't afford it, they provide it for you. Okay, now it sounds pretty straightforward, and it is, because in the olden days, in England and all, prior countries than this. In ancient times, the king would be having a bad day. He's got a hangover or whatever, and you got a lot of people waiting to be heard. The king's justice, and he's like, "Oh man, okay, the first 10 people are guilty, off with their heads. Next, that was not uncommon. So these protect you. This is your due process. Everybody's entitled to this. This is your rights as a human being. Okay? To do the 7th Amendment right now. And it's closely tied to the 5th and 6th Amendment as well. This is more of due process, okay? Very closely tied to that. This deals with the right to a trial jury, okay? Now, people scoff and they say, well, I don't know why they put this in here, because we have the 5th and 6th. It's redundant. Well, guess what? Our forefathers were keenly aware of what the British were doing at the time. They were sending people to prison without a trial jury, without a jury trial. Without trial, they were just saying, "Oh, I caught you, go to jail." That was it. You know, they were fining people just on the word of the official, and nobody was getting a trial. So, this is important stuff, and there's more to it than just what's written here, and I'm going to go into that here in a minute. All right, I'm going to read it, and then we'll discuss it. All right. Excuse me. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. All right. And I'm going to go into more of that here in a minute, but basically what this says is, if you're accused of something, or if there's any kind of a controversy, more than $20, you are entitled to the right of trial by jury. There have to be a jury of 12 or 13, whatever the number is, impartial people who don't have a stake in the outcome, people who aren't swayed. And you've seen all the movies where they're picking the jurors for the trial. And I don't want that guy because he's biased because he's been watching stuff on TV. Or I don't like that guy because his cousin owns such and such place, and if this guy goes to jail, he's going to make all kinds of money. So, he's going to be biased. They have to be unbiased. There's more to it than that, because this also determines the the actions of the court, how the court's supposed to act. It goes for the distinction of the roles of the judge and the jury, and the inherent responsibilities of these positions. So the judge has to be impartial, the jury has to be impartial, and if you go back and review the 5th and 6th Amendment videos, there's there have to be witnesses. The prosecution has to act a certain way. They can't say this, they can't say that. They can't try to badger a witness. They can't lead a witness. There's a lot of protocols that go into that. And when you get into this 7th Amendment, there's a lot more to it than just trial by jury. There's how the trial has to be enacted, how the judge and jury must be impartial. There's a lot that goes into there, and people go, well, shouldn't that have been included in the 5th and 6th Amendment? I don't know. I'm not one of the founding fathers. But let's look at it this way. It was a different time. Those people had reasons to put this in here, and it was obvious and obviously very important that they put this in. And anybody who's had a mistrial, or anybody who's gone to trial innocent and it not gone their way, this can be important to people, very important. Every amendment that goes into the Bill of Rights was put there for a reason, and we have to be very, very careful about which rights we have and which ones somebody could possibly be trampling on. This particular amendment here guarantees and codifies in legal stature the right of a jury trial, okay, and what your rights are. I'm going to do the 8th Amendment right now. I'm going to read it to you. Here we go. Excessive bail, this is the 8th Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Pretty simple and straightforward. And a lot of people think that's open to interpretation, and it may very well be, but you have to understand what was going on at the time. Under British rule, back then, I mean, the British are good people now, but back then, not so much. People were disappearing into prisons and never coming out for little bullshit crimes. People were getting public beatings. They were, I did a little cursory little 5-minute check, and here we go. Stoning, keel hauling, if for those of you who are familiar with naval terms, castration, burning alive, drawing and quartering, public dissection. There was a lot of stuff going on that we didn't want included in our judicial system, in our punitive penal code. So basically, it's any punishment designed to cause a lingering death to be beyond the concept of public decency. That's to be considered unnecessary, cruel and unusual punishment. That's what it's called. All right. Now, the first part of this is important too. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed. People convicted or accused of minor crimes, one, weren't getting the proper trial. Go back and review the 7th Amendment. But they weren't getting their proper trial. And they, you steal a loaf of bread because your family's hungry. Oh, we're going to fine you 800 pounds or whatever. And I don't know the exchange rate, but 800 pounds is a damn lot of money. Okay. Or 20 lashes in the public square for a loaf of bread. Okay. In some parts of the world, stealing a loaf of bread gets your hand chopped off. Okay. There's a lot that goes into that. And excessive bail shall not be required, excessive fines, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. In many prisons, people were, the guards would be walking through, they'd pick a guy randomly and just beat the crap out of him for no reason. They can't do that. It's a cruel and unusual punishment, and it's not legal for them to do so under the 8th Amendment. Okay, people tend to complain a lot about the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and like that. And if you're actually going to trial, the 5th and 6th and 7th Amendments. But they tend to overlook your 8th Amendment rights because it rarely comes to that these days. But back in the day, it was necessary. Okay, our founding fathers put this in here for a reason. And you have to know your rights. Otherwise, you don't know when they're being trampled on. Number 9. The 9th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to read it, then we'll discuss it. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Now, that seems pretty straightforward, but you have to understand why it was put in there. The Anti-Federalists and the Federalists were having a big debate as to whether or not we should have the Bill of Rights in there at all. And there were lots and lots of arguments, and what should be in it, what shouldn't be in it, and all that. Basically, the Anti-Federalists wanted the Bill of Rights in there to ensure that the federal government would not have too much power. The Federalists believed that the U.S. Constitution had created a limited central government. And they were afraid that if they listed our individual rights in like the Bill of Rights, it would be a possible detriment to individual liberties by making other liberties presumed unworthy of constitutional protection. In other words, they felt by listing them, people would think that this is all of them. We don't have any more. And that's just not the case. When you get to the 10th Amendment, this will make a lot more sense. But what you have to understand is our U.S. Constitution is designed to limit the people. And I've discussed this at length many times. Look at the way this is worded. Same as all the other amendments. These are all worded to limit the government, not the people. The enumeration of the constitutional rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's not an instruction for the people. That's an order for the federal government. Okay? This is limiting the government, not the people. Other countries aren't like this, so we're blessed to live in the greatest country in the world, and if anybody thinks otherwise, they're blathering idiots. All right. Basically, what this amendment means is, just because we're listing these rights in the U.S. Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, doesn't mean this is all of the rights. Okay? And people can argue what is and isn't a right. People can argue all kinds of different things. But what it boils down to is, as Americans, we're not limited by what's written in the Constitution. The Constitution limits the government, not us. I'm going to read this 10th Amendment here, and then we'll discuss it. And this is one of the most important ones, in my opinion, because it's like a catch-all, because nobody can enumerate everything. Okay, there's no way. Any situation that could arise, our founding fathers knew they weren't perfect. They knew that nobody, no matter how smart they are, nobody could account for everything that could possibly happen. It's just not possible. Hence the 10th Amendment. Now, the 9th Amendment's also very important because, if it's not listed in the Constitution, we still have that right just because it's not listed. See, and it's along the same lines as this. Here we go. Amendment number 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Okay? Well, this is important. It's very important. The Constitution, and I've said this many times, the Constitution limits the government, not the people. Okay? So, what this is about here is saying the Constitution lists exactly what the government's supposed to do. If it's not listed here, it falls to the states or to the people. Okay? And this is very, very important stuff. Very important stuff, because there's only certain things our government is supposed to do. Okay? Limited government, very small government. That's what we're supposed to have. And these lefties are trying to expand it to do all kinds of stuff it's not supposed to do. There was a whole bunch of them, so I wrote them down. Article 1, Section 8. Articles 2 through 5. Amendments 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25, and 26. All those. Right there. That lists everything the government's supposed to do, and it's not supposed to do anything else. Okay? All this stuff that the lefties want our government to do is not legal. It's not in the Constitution, and the Constitution is the law of the land. Okay? Now, I broke it down into these topics here, and I'm going to read them off to you. This is everything the federal government is supposed to do. Okay. Defense, war prosecution. Peace. Can't read my own writing. Foreign relations, foreign commerce, and interstate commerce. Okay. They're basically they make war on people. They defend our national sovereignty, our borders, border security. Trump's border wall, that's exactly what he's supposed to be doing. Well, we can't have that border wall. Well, no, we need the border wall. That's exactly what he's supposed to be doing. It's national defense. Okay? War prosecution. Somebody messes with us, we got to go mess them up. Boom. That's basically what it boils down to. And the government's good at that. The government's only good at two things: making war and taking your money. That's all. Okay? Everything else they kind of screw up. But this is what they're supposed to do. Right here. Foreign commerce, foreign relations. They're supposed to deal with other governments. Trade deals, things like that. Foreign relations, making sure our stuff abroad isn't getting messed with, that kind of thing. Interstate commerce. Commerce between states. Commerce between people across state lines, that kind of thing. Okay, that's the first one. Okay. Number 2, the protection of citizens' constitutional rights, in general, the right to vote, and ensuring that nobody is ever enslaved. So that's a big one. Okay, that came in one of the amendments. When the good guys took away the Democrat slaves, when the good guys made the Democrats give up their slaves, we actually put an amendment in here saying nobody can ever be legally enslaved again. Isn't that awesome? That is freaking wonderful. And the government is supposed to protect people's rights to vote. Everybody gets a vote, and everybody's rights are protected. Okay. Establishing federal courts inferior to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court of the United States, the president basically picks a judge, and he goes through a confirmation process through the Congress, and that's how the Supreme Court gets judge nominees. Now, the federal government picks inferior, a federal court's inferior to that, not up there with them. Okay, that's one of their duties. Copyright protection. Okay, I'm a writer. I've written 3 books. My wife has a bunch more. My son has one. At 11 years old, he wrote a book. But those books are copyrighted. Nobody can copy them. Anything that's put in there, it's my intellectual property. Okay, copyright protection. Okay, people go, well, you should be able to do whatever you want. No. If I own something that I created and somebody else wants to use it, they got to pay me for it, or they got to ask my permission. One of the two. Coining money. We're going to talk about this one. This is an important one. Okay. Coining money. The federal government is supposed to mint money. I don't care if it's greenbacks or quarters, dimes, dollars, whatever. But that's their job. Okay. In the early 1900s, they came out with the Federal Reserve. Right now, there is an independent, civilian, non-governmental, non-federal reserve, which has no reserve funding. Okay. And they print all of our money. And if you've not read it, there's a book by, I can't remember. It's the name of the book is The Creature from Jekyll Island. And you got to read that book. That book will scare the pee right out of you. Because that book tells exactly how the Federal Reserve was formed and how it works. Oh my God, it's scary. Because these people, these private bankers, whenever we need money and we don't have it, we go to them and we borrow money from them. We have to pay it back to them with interest. Here's the kicker. They don't have any money. They have printing presses. So, say we need $100 million. The government says, well, we need $100 million for blah. They go to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve prints off $100 million. Boom, we've got it. And they send it out to the different banks. Cool, right? Problem is, we have to pay that back with interest. Okay? Now, here's the downside of that. Essentially, for $100 billion, they may have spent $500 worth of paper and ink. Okay? What's interest on $100 billion? Anybody know? 7%? $100 billion? That's $7 billion. $100 million would be $7 million. Okay, 7% of $100 million is $7 million. So when we pay that money back, these people used about $100 worth of printer's ink and paper, and they've created this colored paper with numbers printed on it, and they give it to us, and in exchange we give them $7 billion. Is that not a scam or what? The name of the book is The Creature from Jekyll Island. Oh my God, you've got to read that book. Actually, paused a moment and went and got it. I own it. It's right here. The Creature... Get a good thing here. Okay, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. Okay? This is a wonderful book. It'll scare the pee right out of you. Because what it does is it tells exactly how our banking system works and why we're in such debt. Okay? Our federal government is supposed to print money. That's one of their functions. Instead, we've delegated that to this private banking firm. They give us colored paper with numbers printed on it, and in return, we pay them billions of dollars. It's a scam. It's a big damn scam. And it's a sick, sick scam. Okay? It's scary, the amount of power that these people hold. Read the book. It's a wonderful book, well written, well sourced. Okay? It talks about the Rothschilds and all. I mean, you got to read it. Okay, getting back to the thing here. Establishing post office and post roads. Okay, we've got to have mail. Got to have mail delivery. Nowadays, everybody's using email and like that, but the post office is still important. It's how you get your packages and things like that. But, it's important. Establishing a national set of universal weights and measures. How long is a foot? How much is a pound? Exactly how many grams is in a kilogram? Without a universal set of weights and measures, trade is not possible. You can't trade goods at a set value without universal weights and measures. Okay, it's common sense, and everybody used to be in years past. A foot was however long the king's foot was. You get a different king with a different size foot, and everything changes. And they did this, you go through 10 kings, 10 different foot sizes. There you go. Everything changes. So you got to have a universal set. Taxation needed to raise revenue to perform these essential functions. Taxation is important, okay? And I'm not opposed to reasonable taxes for what the government is supposed to do. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is them taking my money to give it to somebody who's either unwilling or I'm not so much upset if they're unable to work, but nowadays a lot of it is they're just unwilling to work. Okay, I'm against giving welfare and things like that to illegal aliens because that comes out of our tax dollars. That's not free. The government has no money. Without taxation, the government has nothing. And anything they give to somebody for free, it first comes, they got to take it from us. Okay? I don't know about you, but I work hard for my money. Ain't nobody driving up and dropping a load of money off at my house. I work hard for my money. And, I don't have a whole lot, but guess what? I earned what I got. And I don't like it when people say, well, we're going to take X more to give it to this guy over here who just got here, doesn't intend to become an American citizen, and he just wants to live off the freebies, the perks. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And if you're okay with that, that's on you. But I'm not. Okay? I don't mind reasonable taxes to perform these essential functions. When you get into giving free money to people and blah, 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 Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her, my wife told me what it was the other day, but I can't remember what it's called, universal wage or whatever it's called. It's where they pay everyone a set amount, and whether they're working or not, and people have to have a wage whether they're willing to work or not. That's what they actually said. Is people who are unwilling to work are going to get a wage. This is the Democrat philosophy. They're going to take all your shit and give it to somebody else who's not willing to work for it. It's asinine. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the thing here. The 10th Amendment is so very important. These essential functions that I just listed here, are these 8 essential functions. The taxation was the last one. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, which is right there, those, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This is a catch-all. Whatever is not on this list falls to the states or to the people. Okay? Now, our forefathers, our founding fathers, were some pretty smart dudes, because they knew they didn't know everything. They knew they couldn't account for everything, and they knew they couldn't include everything in this one document. They knew it. And they knew times are going to change and different stuff's going to come up. So what they did is they wrote the 10th Amendment and put it in there and said, look, basically it's a cover your butt. Anything we forgot goes to the states or to the people. Okay? Because we don't want this federal government getting too big. And them lefties, they're trying to make it bigger and bigger every day. Okay? So, again, this is one of the most important ones simply by virtue of the fact that it covers so very much. It doesn't sound like it does, but when you think about it, it covers everything that's not in the Constitution. Everything that's not in the Constitution. Okay?